I never thought humiliation could have a sound until I heard the laughter echoing around me that day. It started as a whisper, then turned into a roar that swallowed my name, my pride, and every piece of who I used to be. My name is Emily Carter, and this is the story of how a man I once trusted, a man who said he loved me, turned me into a spectacle for the world to mock. They say pain fades with time, but some moments carve themselves into your skin forever. I can still feel the cold air on my scalp, still smell the paint as it dripped down my face, still hear the bray of that poor donkey beneath me. It wasn't just about revenge or anger. It was about control, about breaking a woman until she forgot she was human. That day he didn't just shave my head or paint my face. He erased me. And the worst part, everyone watched. No one stopped him. It started on a cold Friday evening, the kind that smells like rain and regret. I remember sitting by the window of our small house in Raven Creek, staring at the dusty road that led nowhere. I used to wait for Ryan there. My boyfriend, my mistake. He wasn't late that night. He never was when he wanted something. He walked in smelling of beer and bitterness. His eyes, once soft, had turned sharp and mean. "Who were you talking to?" He snapped, throwing his jacket on the floor. I didn't answer right away, though that was my first mistake. He hated silence. It made him feel small. I told him it was just my cousin on the phone. He didn't believe me. He never believed me anymore. He grabbed my arm so tight it left a bruise shaped like his fingers. "You think you can make a fool out of me?" he growled. That night, something inside him, and maybe inside me, broke for good. He didn't hit me then, not yet. He just looked at me like I was already guilty, like my existence was a crime. When he finally left, I sat on the floor shaking, whispering to myself that love wasn't supposed to hurt like this. But deep down, I already knew. This was only the beginning. If you've ever stayed in a love that scared you, you'll understand what came next. And before we go deeper into what happened after that night, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of my story. The next few weeks felt like walking barefoot on broken glass, carefully, quietly, pretending not to bleed. Ryan started watching everything I did. He checked my phone, deleted my social media, even told my coworkers I was taking time off so I wouldn't go to work. I didn't understand it then, but he was building a cage around me, one I couldn't see until it was too late. He said it was for my own good. He said he loved me too much to lose me. But love doesn't mean locking the doors and hiding the keys. Love doesn't mean making someone disappear from their own life. Some nights when he'd pass out on the couch, I'd sit by the bathroom mirror, looking at my reflection, wondering when I started looking like a ghost. My eyes had lost their color. My smile had forgotten how to exist. Once my best friend Chloe stopped by. She saw the bruises I'd tried to cover with makeup. "Em, this isn't you," she whispered. But before I could answer, Ryan came home early. I still remember the panic in her eyes as I pushed her out the back door. I told her not to come again. That night, Ryan asked who was here. I lied. He knew. He always knew. He didn't hit me. Not yet. But he said something worse. "If you ever try to leave, I'll make sure everyone sees who you really are." I didn't know what he meant then. I wish I never had to find out. Every day after that, I felt smaller, quieter, easier to break. It's strange how pain can become normal when it happens slow enough. I kept telling myself things would change, but deep down, I knew. The storm was only beginning to form. It was a Sunday morning, the kind that used to smell like pancakes and peace. I was folding laundry in the living room when Ryan came storming in, phone in hand, anger in his eyes. "Who's Mark?" he shouted. I froze. It was my brother. He'd texted to check on me. I tried to explain, but Ryan wasn't listening. His jealousy wasn't about reason. It was about power. Before I could finish my sentence, he slapped me. Hard. The sound was louder than I expected, like a door slamming shut inside my soul. My cheek burned and my heart broke in silence. I looked at him, waiting for an apology that never came. Instead, he stared at his hand, like he couldn't believe what he'd done. And then he smiled. "See what you make me do, Emily." That was the moment I stopped believing this was love. For days, I avoided mirrors. I didn't want to see the swelling, the proof of my shame. When he wasn't home, I'd press a cold spoon against my face and whisper, "This isn't forever. You'll get out." But every time I tried to think of leaving, fear whispered louder. Ryan knew everyone in town. He'd told stories that I was unstable, unfaithful, even dangerous. Who would believe me? Still, I started hiding small things. A few dollars in a book, my old phone in a shoebox, a photo of my mom tucked under the floorboard, tiny pieces of a plan that I didn't yet have the courage to finish. I told myself that if I could survive one more week, maybe things would get better. They didn't. Because the next time he got angry, he didn't just use his hand. He used a knife, not to hurt me but to scare me. He held it against my hair and whispered, "You ever think about leaving again? And I'll take this instead." He laughed. I didn't. That's when I knew. One day, he'd make good on his promise. And I had to be gone before that happened. I learned to move like a shadow. Every breath, every glance, every step, calculated. Ryan didn't know it, but I was already halfway gone inside. He'd leave for work around 6 a.m. I'd wait until. I heard his truck disappear down the road before I started my secret routine. I'd check the shoebox under the floorboard, the one with the hidden cash, my old ID, and the small flip phone Chloe had left behind. That phone was my lifeline, my last thread to the world outside these walls. I'd text Chloe once a week from an unknown number, just one line, "Still here." She always replied with 2 words, "I'm waiting." Those messages kept me alive. Some days, I almost believed I'd make it out. Other days, I'd catch Ryan looking at me with that quiet suspicion that made my skin crawl. He'd say things like, "You're lucky I still love you," or "No one else would want you now." He was right about one thing. I didn't recognize myself anymore. My hair had lost its shine, my voice its strength. But somewhere, deep inside, a small part of me was still fighting. One night, while Ryan slept, I sat by the window and stared at the stars, something I hadn't done in months. I whispered, "If you're listening, just give me one chance." The next morning, I got my sign. Ryan's job sent him out of town for 3 days. I had 72 hours to vanish. My heart raced as I packed a small bag. Jeans, a photo of my mom, and the little money I had. My hands shook the whole time. Freedom was close enough to taste. But fear still held me by the throat, because with Ryan, nothing ever went as planned. And deep down, I knew. If he came home early, I might not live to try again. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every zip of the bag sounded like thunder. I kept glancing at the clock. 7:42 p.m. Ryan wasn't supposed to be back until Monday. It was Friday night. I had 2 days left, 2 days to breathe, to disappear. I waited until it got dark, slipped on a hoodie, and stepped outside for the first time in months without asking permission. The air felt different, wild, free, almost sacred. I could hear the crickets, the soft hum of the night. For a second, I thought maybe I was safe. But fate is cruel. Halfway down the dirt road, I saw headlights cutting through the darkness. Ryan's truck. My stomach turned ice. He wasn't supposed to be here. I froze. The bag slipped from my hand. I tried to run, but his voice split the silence. "Emily!" He got out, slamming the door so hard it echoed through the trees. His face was red, his eyes dark and glassy from whiskey. "You were leaving me," he shouted, grabbing my wrist. I begged him to listen. I told him I just needed space, but space was the last thing he'd ever give me. He dragged me back to the house, my feet scraping against gravel. I could taste blood in my mouth, my voice cracking as I cried his name. But mercy wasn't part of him anymore. Inside, he locked the door and threw my bag against the wall. Clothes scattered everywhere. "You think you can walk out and make me look like a fool?" he spat. Then his voice got quiet, too quiet. You want the world to see who you really are, Emily. Fine, they will. I didn't know what he meant. Not yet. But something in his tone, calm, cold, and certain, told me the nightmare was only beginning. He smiled then, a smile I'll never forget. You wanted attention, he whispered. I'll give you more than you can handle. And that was the last night I ever saw the stars without fear. I can't remember everything from that night. It's like pieces of me shattered and scattered, and some are gone forever. I remember his voice, calm, deliberate, almost too quiet to be real. It made my skin crawl. You think everyone will just forget you? He said. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Some moments replay in my mind like broken film. The sound of the door shutting behind me, the cold air hitting my skin, the way my reflection in the glass seemed like a stranger. I wanted to scream, to run, to vanish into the night. But fear held me tighter than chains. By the time it ended, I was trembling. My hair felt heavier than ever, my face unfamiliar in the mirror, my hands shaking with a kind of disbelief that refused to leave. I could hear the town outside, quiet, as if nothing had happened, and it made me feel even more alone. I sat on the floor clutching my knees, trying to breathe through the panic that refused to stop. My mind kept repeating the same thought. How could someone I trusted turn into this? How could someone I loved erase me so completely? I didn't know if I would ever be the same. I didn't even know if I wanted to be. But in the dark, something stubborn inside me refused to die. I realized then that while he could try to break me, he could never take the part of me that remembered who I was, the part that still dreamed of sunlight, freedom, and a life outside his shadow. I whispered into the silence, I will survive this. Somehow, I have to. The next morning, I touched my hair, looked in the mirror, and for the first time since it all began, I made a promise to myself. I will find a way back. I will remember who I am, and I will be free, even if it takes everything I have left. The days after, everything changed. The house felt like a cage even when Ryan wasn't around. Every sound made me jump, every shadow whispered warnings. But somewhere beneath the fear, a tiny spark of defiance had started to grow. I began leaving little notes for Chloe, hidden in places I knew only she would find. A single word, help. Another, soon. Each message felt like a lifeline, proof that I wasn't entirely trapped inside his control. I started reclaiming small parts of myself. I washed my face in cold water, stared at the reflection and whispered, "You're still here." I wore my own clothes again, not the ones he demanded, not the ones that made me invisible. I didn't feel brave, but I felt something, a tiny glimmer of power that had been stolen from me. Ryan noticed, of course. He would frown, question me, remind me, in subtle ways, that nothing I did could erase what had happened. And he was right. The fear was mine to carry, the shame too. No one could give that back. But I realized something else too. I wasn't just a victim. I was a person who remembered her own name, a person who could still dream of leaving, of building a life beyond the walls of that house, beyond the reach of someone like him. I started planning, carefully, silently, not just for me, but for the version of me that had been buried under his control. Every secret glance at the door, every whispered word to Chloe, every heartbeat counting the seconds until I could run. It became part of a strategy, part of my own quiet rebellion. The worst part wasn't the fear anymore. The worst part was knowing that some damage would never fully heal, that even if I escaped the memory of that night, the feeling of being erased, humiliated and powerless would follow me forever. And yet, despite it all, I clung to hope, because hope, even the smallest flicker, was stronger than the fear he had forced on me. I would survive. I would leave. I would remember myself. But the cost of being free, I knew, would be higher than anything I had imagined. The morning was quiet, deceptively quiet. I had packed the smallest bag I could carry, a few clothes, my hidden cash, and Chloe's notes folded into my jacket pocket. Every step toward the door felt heavier than the last, my heart pounding like it could escape before me. Ryan was still asleep when I slipped out. The air felt sharp against my skin, the sky pale and indifferent. I didn't dare breathe too loudly, didn't dare think about what I was leaving behind. But every step I took was mine alone. I reached the road, and for the first time in months, I felt the world stretching out ahead of me, open and endless. Freedom tasted bitter and sweet at the same time. I wanted to run, to laugh, to scream, but tears came instead. And then I heard it. The truck. Ryan. My stomach sank, panic threatening to swallow me whole. I ducked behind the trees, holding my breath as he drove past, oblivious. Somehow, luck, or fate, had given me a chance. I ran then, faster than I thought I could. Every muscle ached, every lung burned, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The town faded behind me, the life I knew, the fear, the shame. When I finally reached Chloe's house, I collapsed into her arms, sobbing, trembling, exhausted. She didn't ask questions. She just held me, letting me be weak, letting me cry out everything I had been forced to hide. The weeks that followed were hard. I had escaped, but the memory of that night, the humiliation, the fear, it never fully left me. Some mornings I still stared into the mirror, touching my hair, my face, and wondering if I would ever feel whole again. I learned that freedom comes with scars. Some people heal. Some people carry the past with them forever. I am one of those who carry it. I am free now. But the cost of that freedom, the innocence I lost, the trust I can't get back, stays with me. And sometimes when the wind hits my face just right, I remember the girl I used to be, and I mourn her too. It's been months since I ran, since I left Raven Creek behind, but some nights, the memories come back like shadows I can't shake. I still wake up to the sound of a door slamming or a sudden movement in the dark, and my chest tightens, reminding me of the fear I lived in. I survived. That is true. I walked away with my life, and I found people who reminded me what safety and care felt like. But surviving doesn't erase the past. Some scars are invisible, lodged deep in the heart, in the way I flinch, in the quiet whispers I tell myself when no one is around. I carry both freedom and memory with me. The price of one is the weight of the other. I've learned to live with it, to hold on to the strength that fear could never destroy. And even though the world may never fully understand what happened, I understand it. I survived because I had no choice but to, and because a part of me refused to be erased. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this: freedom is precious, even when it comes at a cost, and strength can grow in the darkest of places.